Hello everyone, welcome to a video on Metronic. In this video, we'll discuss on Metronic's latest version 6.0.2 and above on how you can install and get started with Metronic. So first thing to do is we'll need to show you guys where you can purchase and download Metronic. To do that, we need to navigate or basically go to themeforest.net. And once you're there, navigate to HTML and popular items and find Metronic here. Once in here, you can go ahead and just add to cart or buy now. And once you've purchased Metronic, you'll get a download link where you can download Metronic's zip file. Once you've purchased and downloaded Metronic, you will basically see something like this, where next thing you need to do is just to extract it to your wherever you want. This may take a while, so I will just fast forward this part and get back to you once it's done. Alright, the file has been unpacked, so let's have a look at what's in Metronic. The first thing you see here is three main folders: the design, docs, and theme. The design, in the design folder is where all our design files are placed, like our PSD and sketch. You can, if you need to do any manipulation with the PSD, you can feel free to use our files here. Our docs folder is where our official documentation sits. You can just go ahead and open up the index.html in our documentation and basically see the documentation on the docs tab. But before we go into the documentation, let's have a look at our theme. In our theme, we have three main packages. Basically, we have the Angular, Classic, and Default. In our Angular package, it's basically a complete Angular package for Angular developers to build web applications using Google's most popular Angular framework. And the Classic is mainly just a simple Classic package based on jQuery for you guys who prefer some old school coding without build tools or package managers. The Default package is it is our most popular default jQuery based package that's used by the majority of our customers. And in this package, we use the latest web development techniques such as task automation using Gulp and npm and yarn for library installation. And you can use this default package to fully customize the CSS of your theme through Sass, which is a CSS preprocessor, and build customized assets that can be handpicked by you guys to only include required plugins or components. And yeah, so inside in our default package, we have our source and tools folder. The source is where the main source of the theme sits. It is where all our JS and Sass files are located either in the assets here and here or in the demo. And the media file is where all our images sit, like the backgrounds that we use, or any images, or basically media files. And we have also the vendors folder where all our third-party plugins are included that are not available within Yarn or npm. And these plugins or these vendor files are basically directly downloaded from their websites and distributed within the theme source, since it's not available within Yarn and npm. So a little bit more about our JS and Sass. Our JS files is, as mentioned, where all our JS files sits. In the theme, we have core, demo, and pages. Our core is basically the core JS files that's required by Metronic. The demos are all the JS files that each demo uses, like demo 1 has a specific layout.js, and demo 2 has its own layout.js, and so on and so forth. Pages is where all our custom JS is placed for all our custom functionality or certain JS scripts that's needed for certain pages within Metronic. Then comes our vendors in our JS, which is basically the JS files for each vendor. Next will be our source. Is similar with our JS structure. We have our Bootstrap and our vendors, and then we have our theme. In our theme, also similar with our JS structure, we have a core, pages, and demos. Our core is where all of our Metronic core source file sits, and demos is where all our source files for each demo sits that overrides the core if it needs to. Pages is where our custom pages source file sits, where like our error page or FAQ pages or invoices, this is where it goes. Okay, so back to source. Now in our source, we have all our demo source files here, and all these source files are basically the HTML templates of the main demo. So like demo 1 will have the HTML source for demo 1 along with all the other inner pages within Metronic. Our other demos do not repeat these inner pages or inner components or elements, since the components and plugins are globally available for all demos. It sits in demo 1 and is shared across the other demos. So if you have a look at demo 2, we only see the index and the dashboard, which is basically having the aside and fluid HTML, which is mainly for layout purposes. Because everything is, all our components or elements or plugins are globally flexible and compatible with every demo, you can just select like say demo 8 or 9, whichever you want, and then place any of demo 1's elements into that and it will work fine. So now let's go ahead and have a look at our docs, our documentation. So if you go back to our root of Metronic, go to our docs and we open up the index, which is here, and then we go to the documentation tab, you'll be greeted by the quick start manual, so to speak. And in here we give you a very quick and easy step-by-step on how you can install and run Metronic's default package. So the first thing to do here is we need to get the latest theme from Theme Forest, which is what we explained to you earlier in this video. And next is to download Node.js. Now Node.js is a open source cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment that executes JavaScript code outside of the browser. This Node.js is required for Metronic to work. So if you don't have Node.js already installed on your machine, we definitely recommend you to do so, because Metronic will, or the default package of Metronic will not work without this. So once you've downloaded either Windows or Mac for your whichever machine that you have or OS that you have, once you've done downloading and installing it, moving next to is we need to open up our command prompt or terminal and navigate to our tools folder. Now what we mean by that is, if you go back to our Metronic root, you go to our theme, you go to our default, because this is our quick start steps is mainly for our default package. You'll find our tools folder here, and what we need to do is we need to open up a command prompt or terminal within this path. For Windows, an easy way to, or a shortcut to do that is just to type in cmd right here. For Macs, you need to open up a terminal and navigate to it, or if you do know a shortcut, you can just go ahead and do that. So next, we need to install npm and yarn. Now, npm and yarn are basically package managers that automate the process of installing and upgrading third-party plugins and libraries, such as Bootstrap, like Bootstrap or Bootstrap Picker or Font Awesome, icons like Font Awesome 5 and stuff like that. So it's just like an automation process where you just need to run it, and the npm and yarn would just do the rest to install all the necessary libraries. So what we need to do here is we need to copy this command and put it in our command prompt. If this is the first time of you guys installing npm, this will take a lot longer than what you see here. But if you already have npm installed, you don't really need to do this, but it is always recommended for you to just run it, just to keep npm and yarn and later gulp up to date. Once it's done, you can check your npm version and even your yarn version by typing this command. You can just go and just do it there, and you see the version is 6.9.0 of npm, and that is the latest version. So next, let's go ahead and install yarn. And if you want to check on yarn's version, you can just type in yarn -- and version. It's using 1.9.4, and that's perfectly fine. Also, one thing that we like to note is when you download, let's say we receive a new update from Metronic, we highly recommend you guys to run yarn upgrade after every update in order to basically install the latest version of yarn and also update all the third-party plugins. Next, let's talk about Gulp. We will need to install Gulp is because Gulp is a cross-platform streaming task runner that lets you guys to automate many development tasks, such as Sass compilation and JS minification and concatenation. What I mean by Sass compilation is we would basically compile Sass into CSS and minify our JS files, or merge or bundle our JS and CSS files into a single file. We'll get into our file bundling more in our future video, but at this point of time, we just need to understand that Gulp is necessary to compile and deploy our CSS and JS into our assets. So let's go ahead and install Gulp. Let's copy that, put it in our terminal, and let it run. So now that Gulp is done, we can check the Gulp version by just typing gulp -- version. At this point of time, it's using version 2.2.0, and that's all good. So now that we need to build our demos, in our source we have, of course, our HTML source file, but we will definitely need to build the entire Metronic demo. Therefore, in that sense, you guys need to run Gulp Build to basically create the dist folder that is generated by compiling and deploying all of Metronic's HTML, JS, CSS, and all the other third-party assets into a compiled dist package, and it'll be a full package for you to just run and view Metronic on your machine. The reason why we do not include all these predefined files or pre-compiled files, such as the CSS, or even media files, or even the HTML stuff, into the download zip file, is because what we plan to do with Metronic is we plan to include a lot more demos. Like at the moment, we already have 12 demos right from the start. We plan to have like a lot more as we go on, and because we will have like, maybe we'll reach a point where we'll have 20, 30, 40, 50 demos, and once we reach that size, the initial zip file may be too large to be downloaded by ThemeForest effectively. So we will only include the source material or the source files. So all you have to do is you just need to run Gulp Build to build all our demo or the demo files. But before we run Gulp Build, we need to run yarn. Simply because, like here, we mentioned here, that what yarn does is it just install all of Metronic's dependencies and third-party libraries. So let's go ahead and do just that. So let's type in yarn. And what we can see here is if we go into our tools, and you will notice that there will be a node modules folder pop up, and in the node modules folder is where all of Metronic's libraries, third-party libraries or dependencies are located. Now, as this is running, we like to mention that we do have some of our customers come to us and say that could we use or could we integrate Metronic into our own webpack, like your own webpack, your own project webpack for other build tasks, so that they can just compile the SAS and JS into their own build tasks directly. For that case, we usually will say no to that. Is because our theme file structure is very specific and robust, and in order to use the theme without any issues, we highly recommend you guys to use our build tasks to compile the assets instead of your own. So now that yarn is done, if you notice that this node module just appeared, and also like the package.json, that is where we keep all our third-party libraries and dependencies. So the next thing we need to do after installing yarn, we look into our steps, will be to run Gulp Build. As mentioned earlier, what this does is to build our demo files. So as this is running, let's go back to our defaults, and you notice there's a dist folder that appears. Go into a dist and you see our demos being created. Also guys, do bear in mind that you only need to install, let's go ahead and look at our documentation again. You only need to install npm yarn and gulp on your development machine or your local machine, or basically an environment where you're working on it. You do not need to install npm yarn and gulp on your production server, which is your live server, or even your staging server, where you just deploy whatever you have onto your server for preview, and or even for live when it goes live on your production server. You do not need to have npm yarn and gulp for those environments. It's only mainly for your development, so usually it's only on you only need it on your local machine as you're developing it. And also, once you've built or once you've created your project, it is also recommended for you guys to have your project file in a separate folder and not use any of these folders within, or not create new folders within the Metronic source package. We recommend you guys to have a separate project and just put the theme folder, like either the default or wherever, close to it, like maybe within the root of your project or something like that, so that when you want to refer to the code, you can just do it within the same IDE or the same IDE root path. So now that our demos are done, let's have a look. Yep, it's done. So let's test our demo 1, double click that, and you see Metronic fully running. So this is demo 1. So as we mentioned earlier, that demo 2, 3, 4 and all these other demos do not need like all the elements and components that's available within demo 1, simply because all this stuff is shared across all demos. So if you go to demo 6 and just look at index, you see the Metronic demo working perfectly with all the assets and elements and components readily available. So let's go ahead and try another demo. Let's go and see demo 10. I'll click that. And you have Metronic with a different layout, a different structure, different look and feel, all ready for you to use with the exact same, not say exact same, like fully customized and themed components and elements for this specific demo. So let's have a look at what else do we have in our steps. Step 9 onwards is optional. You don't really need to do this when you run Metronic, but it's something is good to know. To run Gulp API URL is an optional task for basically demo purposes. What it does is it just loads up the data table data for the data table demos. Next will be our Gulp localhost. If you do not have a localhost software like WAMP or XAMPP already pre-installed on your machine, and you want to have a localhost environment to run Metronic in, you can just type in Gulp localhost and go to this link here, and you're good to go. The other Gulp functions would be Gulp watch, and under Gulp watch you have Gulp watch sus and watch JS. What this does is it just it gives you a shortcut for you to run Gulp every time you update a certain sus file or a certain JS file within Metronic. This is again for development purposes. If you do not need it, you don't have to use it at all. But if you want to have Gulp to run automatically, you can just type in Gulp watch on your terminal and just let it go, let it run. Okay, so that's about it for this video. So I hope you enjoyed watching it, and in our next video we will be talking about how to kickstart your very first project, and we will basically showcase or demo to you on how you can start up a new project from scratch. Like we create a new folder, a project folder, and we start creating a file structure within the project, and then how we will be using Metronic as a companion tool to populate your project. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on the notification bell so that when we release that video you get an update. Also follow us on Twitter and Facebook and all our social media, which we will link in the description below. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.